From nobody to number one. The story no one saw coming. Would you believe that in 2018, Jannik Sinner was ranked outside the top 1,500 in the world? Not up and coming, not one to watch, completely invisible. At just 17 years old, he wasn't playing Grand Slams, wasn't beating top seeds, wasn't making headlines anywhere. He was grinding through the ITF Futures and ATP Challenger circuits, the unglamorous, underpaid proving grounds of professional tennis. Most kids at that level burn out or give up. The money is terrible, the travel is brutal, and there are zero guarantees. And here's what makes Sinner's story even more unique. He didn't even start in tennis. He was a competitive skier on the Italian Alps, a successful one too. But somewhere along the way, he traded the slopes for the court, and everything changed. Skiing at an elite level requires incredible balance, explosive leg power, and mental toughness under pressure. And those same attributes translated directly to tennis. His first full professional year ended with just $7,158 in prize money. But his ranking jumped from 1,592 all the way to 551, passing over 1,000 players in a single season. That's not luck, that's a system working. Someone who knows exactly what they're doing and is doing it quietly, relentlessly. No fanfare, no viral moments, just wins stacking on wins, experience stacking on experience, the foundation everything else was built on. The most dominant player in the world today started in complete silence. If you love stories like this, where the grind meets the greatness, you're in the right place. Make sure you're subscribed to Tennis Insider, because we break down the moments, the numbers, and the mindset behind the sport's biggest names. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. The year of firsts, 2019, and the birth of a champion. 2019 was the year Jannik Sinner stopped being a prospect and started being a problem. 3 ATP Challenger titles, Bergamo, Trento, Santa Margherita di Pula, all in Italy, all in a row. February 18th, Bergamo, his first tournament at home that year, and he exploded, wins the title. Then back-to-back in Trento and Santa Margherita, 3 consecutive Challenger crowns. That kind of consistency at 17 going on 18, that's elite. And then April 1st, Alicante, Spain, a match that nobody remembers, but everybody should. Sinner came up against a teenager with an athletic bloodline, an explosive game, and a winning family culture. His name? Carlos Alcaraz. At the time, they were just 2 kids nobody knew. Alcaraz took the first set, Sinner bounced back for the second, and then the Spaniard pulled through in the third. A close, hard-fought match between 2 rising stars. Nobody in that arena could have imagined they were watching the beginning of what would become the greatest rivalry in modern tennis. The Roland Garros final, Wimbledon, the ATP finals. That first match in Alicante, it was a premonition. Then April 22nd, Budapest. Sinner wins his first ATP Tour level match against local favorite Mate Valkus. Takes the first set, gets bageled in the second, comes back to win the third 6-4. That composure, fighting back after a bagel, that's already elite mental stuff. The year ends with the biggest moment yet, November 4th, Milan. The next General ATP Finals. Sinner walks in as a wild card and walks out with the trophy, dismantling top seed Alex de Minaur in straight sets in front of a roaring home crowd. Career earnings by end of year 2, $644,111. Ranking 78 in the world. From 1,592 to 78 in 2 years. The machine was warming up. Baptized by fire, Sinner faces the legends. 2020 was a strange year for the entire world, and tennis was no exception. The pandemic reshuffled the calendar. Tournaments were canceled or moved, and players had to adapt to conditions nobody had prepared for. For a young player still establishing himself, that kind of disruption can either derail you or define you. For Sinner, it was the latter. Australian Open, early exit. US Open, early exit. Not ideal. But then came Roland Garros, and everything changed. September 28th, Paris. Sinner breezed through the early rounds and found himself facing Alexander Zverev, a former world number 3, a big server, a major threat on any surface. Sinner dominated the first 2 sets, clean, clinical, controlled. He dropped his first set of the tournament to Zverev, but regrouped and pushed through to the quarterfinals. And waiting there, Rafael Nadal. On clay, in Paris, the most terrifying combination in the history of tennis. Sinner came out sharp. He pushed the first set all the way to a tiebreak, which, on clay, against Nadal at Roland Garros, is genuinely remarkable. But Rafa is not human on that court. He locked in and dominated the rest of the way. You don't take a set off Nadal at Roland Garros easily. That match told Sinner and the entire tennis world that this kid belonged at the highest level. He closed 2020 the right way, his first ATP Tour title at Sofia, Bulgaria. Ranking moved from 78 to 37. Total earnings, $1.37 million, crossing the $1 million barrier in just 3 years. From $7,000 to over $1 million. From 1,500 in the world to 37. That's not a career arc, that's a rocket launch. And the fuel hadn't even ignited yet. Top 10 and the hunger that loss creates. Year 4, 2021. And Jannik Sinner came in swinging. 4 titles, Melbourne 1, Washington, his first ATP 500, Sofia defending his crown, and Antwerp. A player who's not just winning, but building a catalog of trophies across different surfaces and different levels of competition. But 2021 wasn't just about wins. It was about the losses that lit a fire. Monte Carlo. Sinner faces Novak Djokovic, and there's a fascinating backstory. Both Djokovic and Sinner trained under the same mentor, Riccardo Piatti. So this was literally an old student versus a current student matchup. And Novak, being Novak, showed absolutely no mercy. Clean victory. But here's what's important. Sinner walked away from that match and said, out loud, that his goal was to become world number 1. He didn't say, I want to be in the top 10. He didn't say, I want to compete with the best. He looked at the best player in the world, lost to him, and set his sights directly on the top spot. Then came Rome and Roland Garros against Nadal, both losses. Rafa was unforgiving, as always. And a battle with Alcaraz in Paris, more losses. But here's the counterintuitive truth about elite athletes. They need these losses. Every match against Djokovic, every loss to Nadal, every battle with Alcaraz is data. It's calibration. It's showing you exactly where the gaps are. Sinner absorbed every lesson and ended 2021 inside the top 10 with $3.5 million in career prize money. The kid who made $7,000 in year 1 had become a top 10 player in the world by year 4. And he was still getting better. The rivalry ignites, Sinner versus Alcaraz round by round. 2022 was the year the Sinner-Alcaraz rivalry stopped being a footnote and became the headline. It started at Wimbledon. Sinner avenged an earlier loss to Wawrinka, then came face-to-face with Alcaraz in the round of 16. 4 sets, Sinner wins. His first victory over Alcaraz on the ATP Tour. And the reward for beating Alcaraz? You get to face Novak Djokovic, who was absolutely dialed in at Wimbledon. Sinner had a great start, won the first 2 sets, and then Djokovic flipped the switch. One of the most painful losses of his young career. Being 2 sets up and watching the match get pulled away from you, that kind of defeat either breaks you or sharpens you. It sharpened him. He went to Umag, beat Alcaraz again on clay, his first clay court title, and then they met again at the US Open. Fireworks, 5 sets, back and forth. End result, Alcaraz takes it. Another 5-set heartbreaker for Sinner. 3 meetings in 1 year. Sinner wins 2, Alcaraz wins 1 in the biggest match. The numbers were close, the tennis was spectacular, the rivalry was officially real. Sinner was being tested at the highest level, over and over, and he was competing, not just surviving, competing. He ended 2022 at rank 15, career earnings $6.3 million. The foundation was done, the walls were up, now it was time to build the ceiling. The year it all clicked, 2023 and the rise to 4. 2023 was the year Jannik Sinner graduated, not just improved, graduated. 4 titles, Montpellier, Toronto, Beijing, Vienna, and not small titles either. Toronto was his first ATP Masters 1000 trophy, one of the biggest events on tour outside the Grand Slams. The Toronto final, Sinner versus Medvedev, and he didn't just win, he dominated. Game, set, Sinner. No drama, no tiebreaks, clinical execution on the biggest master stage. Then Beijing, then Vienna. Both against Medvedev in the finals, both convincing victories. 3 title wins over the same elite opponent in the same season. That's not luck, that's mastery. When you beat the same world-class player 3 times in finals in 1 year, you figured something out that most players never do. And then December, Davis Cup final, Italy versus Australia, Sinner versus Demeanor, the same opponent he defeated in Milan 4 years earlier at the next-gen finals. Full circle moment. Italy wins. Sinner is a key part of it. He closes the year ranked 4th in the world with $14.6 million in career prize money. 4th in the world, and still hungry, because 4th wasn't the goal. 4th was a stepping stone. The goal was always number 1. And in 2024, he was gonna make it happen in the most dramatic, dominant way possible. Historic season, 2024 and the arrival of a king. In 2024, Jannik Sinner didn't just have a great season, he had a historic one. It started at the Australian Open, and it didn't just start well, it started with a statement. He demolished the competition all the way through to the final, including a win over World No.1 Novak Djokovic. And in the final, facing Daniil Medvedev, he pulled off one of the greatest comeback victories in Grand Slam history. Down 2 sets, facing someone who had beaten him in a Grand Slam final before, and he came back to win in 5 sets. That was the moment the tennis world truly stopped debating whether Sinner was elite and started asking whether he was the best. Then he didn't stop. Rotterdam, Miami, Halle, Cincinnati, title after title, tournament after tournament. By the time the US Open came around, he was in full God mode, obliterated the draw, and beat Taylor Fritz in the final in straight sets. A straight-set Grand Slam final victory. That's not just winning, that's a message. Shanghai Masters over Djokovic, Nito ATP Finals over Fritz, Davis Cup defended. By the end of 2024, he was the undisputed best player in the world, with $31.5 million in career prize money. In 1 year, he nearly doubled his entire career earnings. That's the financial reality of being number 1. From $7,158 in year 1 to $31.5 million total by year 7. The numbers don't lie, the trophies don't lie, the rankings don't lie. Jannik Sinner had arrived, and the tennis world would never be the same. The ban, the comeback, and the battle for clay. And just when everything looked perfect, just when Sinner had cemented himself as the best player in the world, a controversy hit, a doping investigation. And in a move that surprised the tennis world, Sinner and his legal team struck a deal. He accepted a 3-month ban starting February 9th, ending May 4th. No Grand Slams missed, no prize money lost, no title stripped. He'd miss a handful of tournaments and return just in time for Rome and Roland Garros. Critics argued it was too light. Supporters said he handled it with professionalism and transparency. Either way, the focus quickly shifted to one question: How would Sinner return? The answer came in Rome. He came back composed, focused, and ready, delivering an immaculate performance against Casper Ruud, dropping barely a set throughout the tournament. And then Roland Garros. Sinner bulldozed through the draw all the way to the final, facing Alcaraz again. He won the first 2 sets convincingly, and then Carlos Alcaraz, the reigning king of clay, began his comeback. What followed was described by many as the greatest Roland Garros final ever played. A 5-set, emotionally brutal, technically brilliant masterpiece. Alcaraz wins. The greatest defeat of Sinner's career, but also proof that he belongs on the grandest stages. He didn't break, he moved forward. Wimbledon was next, and with an injured elbow, facing Alcaraz in the final again, Sinner flipped a script. He produced jaw-dropping tennis under pressure, sealed the match, and stood atop center court as the new Wimbledon champion. Revenge sealed. History rewritten. And still, he wasn't finished. Sunshine double and the clay crown. 2026 dominance. 2026 started with setbacks. Defending the Australian Open, Sinner lost to Novak Djokovic in a 5-set thriller. In Doha, he got upset by young Jakub Mensik. The doubts started creeping in. Can he maintain this level? Has the competition caught up? Is the 2024-era Sinner already the peak? Indian Wells answered all of those questions loudly. Sinner didn't just win, he smashed records. And then at the Miami Open, he obliterated the competition again, completing the rare Sunshine double without dropping a single set. Not one set. Dropped across 2 back-to-back Masters 1000 events. And in doing so, he broke the world record for the most consecutive sets won at the Masters 1000 level, 37 sets straight. That is not a human number. That's a machine in optimal condition. And then came Monte Carlo, the clay. Sinner's weakest surface historically, but with the Sunshine double points in his pocket, he was in striking distance of reclaiming the #1 ranking, because Alcaraz had a mountain of points to defend. Whoever won Monte Carlo would be world #1. The whole tennis world was watching. First meeting of the year between Sinner and Alcaraz. Wind, pressure, electric atmosphere. Sinner is down 5-6 in the first set, on the edge. And instead of cracking, he locks in. Holds serve, forces a tiebreak. Alcaraz double faults on set point. Sinner takes it. Second set, Alcaraz breaks early, up 3-1. Momentum shifting. And then Sinner does what Sinner does. 4 straight games. Serves out the championship. Straight sets. 7-6, 6-3. His first Masters title on clay. His 4th consecutive Masters 1000 crown. World #1 reclaimed. From the ITF Futures to the summit of the tennis world, this is the story of Jannik Sinner. Legacy in the making. Why Sinner's story is just beginning. Let's put this entire journey in perspective, because the numbers alone tell a story that's almost impossible to believe. 2018, ranked 1,592. Prize money, $7,158. A teenager from the Italian Alps who barely anyone had heard of. 2026 World #1. Career earnings over $50 million. 4 consecutive Masters 1000 titles. Multiple Grand Slam trophies. The holder of the world record for consecutive sets won at Masters level. In 8 years. 8 years from complete anonymity to the absolute pinnacle of professional tennis. And what makes this story resonate isn't just the trophies, it's the way he got there. No shortcuts, no overnight breakthrough, just relentless, quiet, systematic improvement. Year after year, loss after loss, challenge after challenge. He faced Nadal on clay and lost. He learned. He faced Djokovic and lost. He learned. He faced Alcaraz and lost heartbreakers. He learned. And then, one by one, he started winning those exact matchups. Every legend he lost to became a blueprint. Every defeat became data. That is not a talent story. That is a character story. And character is the one thing that doesn't fade with age, doesn't get upset by a rookie, and doesn't crumble under a doping controversy. Sinner's legacy is still being written. He's 24 years old, at the peak of his powers, facing the greatest rival of his era in Carlos Alcaraz, and he's clearly hungry for more. The best chapters may not have been written yet, and that is what makes following Sinner and this era of tennis so extraordinarily exciting. If you want to be in the front row for every chapter of this story, the rivalries, the records, the drama, the greatness, subscribe to Tennis Insider right now. We cover the sport at the deepest level, from the stats and tactics to the mindset and legacy of the players who defined this era. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the community that never misses a moment. Because with Jannik Sinner, you do not want to miss what comes next.